Way too early Big Ten quarterback rankings, where I think these quarterbacks will finish by the end of 2024. We're diving into that, but first, program building blocks. Who is the future for the Minnesota Golden Gophers?
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
What's up, Gopher fans? You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator, and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Now, we've been a little bit off on our daily programming here. I appreciate your patience, but we're going to dive in with a great show on today's episode where we're talking about who are the building blocks for this Golden Gophers football program moving forward for the next 2 to 3 years. Who are the faces of this program that can help carry them into the new era of the Big Ten? Then on top of that, we're going to talk about way too early quarterback rankings for the Big Ten Conference and how I think it'll shake out for the end of the 2024 season. And finally, we got to talk about alumni Antoine Winfield Jr., who cashed in with the NFL. We're talking about all of that today on today's episode of Locked On Golden Gophers. So be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube so you don't miss any of this Gophers content moving forward. But let's jump in with the building blocks first. Who are the players that can be that foundation, the groundwork of this Gophers football program for the next 2 to 3 years, plus maybe some big names of intrigue that we haven't seen on the football field, but could be bigger names if everything shakes out right. Now, I think this is a pivotal time for the Minnesota Golden Gophers in this new Big Ten landscape with 18 teams, and you can't afford to be on the bottom of the conference because that can affect recruiting long-term, that can affect transfer interest long-term. So the Gophers have to find a way to turn things back around and really get things going. And the only thing that can keep you out of the cellar, in my opinion, is a foundation of guys that can carry the program direction forward for multiple years. Now, yes, players like Max Brosmer, Daniel Jackson, Ariante Ursery, Josh Joyner, Justin Wally, Jack Henderson, Quinn Carroll, Tyler Cooper, and many others. All these guys are massively important for this upcoming season, but they'll likely only be with the Gophers for this one more season. So they won't be discussed in this segment of the show because they likely won't be back next year. So who are the Gophers that can be the core that I anticipate will be more of the face and massively important towards the success for the next few seasons? Well, let's start with the offense and kicking it off. The first name, easiest to name by far, Darius Taylor. He's the easiest name. He's at the forefront of the list. He is the face of this team already, and we are a run-first team, plain and simple. And so the fact that he kind of leads that running back room, he's shown off the talent, he's shown off the potential, and now you've got a guy who's ready to work and take that year 2 leap and really shine in a hopefully fully healthy season. Knock on wood, cross your fingers, or whatever you do to make sure that the jinx doesn't happen. Do it right now for me. But regardless of that, we are a run first team. He has all conference level potential. He was an all conference honorable mention player last year. He led the nation in rushing yards per game, and he is just getting started, getting stronger over the offseason, getting faster over the offseason, understanding what the game speed is in the Big Ten level of play. And he will be the lead focus of this offense for as long as he is here. So Darius Taylor is by far the face of this program when it comes to the offensive side of things. Now, other guys that I kind of see as those building block faces right now, next one that comes to mind is Greg Johnson. He's another player we've been talking hand in hand with Darius Taylor, both of them in that 2023 class, both of them playing as true freshmen. Now, Greg Johnson likely going to be a starting offensive lineman for the next 2 to 3 years for the Golden Gophers. He's starting at center for the Gophers this year and possibly beyond, and he will always be touching the ball if that's the case. The center is the first one to touch the ball on every given play. Now, the nice thing is that he is surrounded by veterans this year, but next year he will be that veteran. He will be possibly one of the only returning starters coming back next season on that offensive line, and possibly either one of the only one or one of two on that offensive line. So he has true freshman experience, and he's only getting better, and the coaches love this guy. So I think Greg Johnson is definitely a face of the program, also a local kid, which helps make those connections for the up and coming generations to really want to stay home and play. So Greg Johnson, definitely a name that I think is a major building block for the Golden Gophers. And then the other one I wanted to say on offense is Drake Lindsey. Now, from what we've seen and what we've heard from the staff and from other players, he could absolutely be the future of this quarterback room. But we've said that about quarterbacks before, so I'm not going to lock on it. I'm not going to say he is the guy. We still have yet to determine that. But he has high upside as a passer. We saw that at the high school level. We've seen it in brief flashes at the collegiate level in his early enrollee period. Now, he had crazy high school production, won the Gatorade Player of the Year for Arkansas. He has the size, 6'5". He has the intangibles. I believe he's like 220 pounds, rocket arm. This dude has everything you're looking for a quality to elite type quarterback. And if he starts to connect it all and get up to speed and have the IQ and the film breakdown parts of it all, that is going to help him not only win this job for Minnesota in the future years, but be a guy who can separate himself, who can produce, who can change the narrative of Gophers football in the passing game. So hopefully Max Brosmer starts that trend and changing the narrative, but hopefully Drake Lindsey takes the baton and keeps on running with it. Now, he doesn't have to be rushed on the field, and that's a good thing. Max Brosmer, he's picking his brain. He's attached at his hip. He wants to know more and more and be able to take that opportunity when it's there, but he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to take any confidence shots. He doesn't have to be thrown to the wolves, and that is a great thing for his development in the long term because the Gophers haven't proven yet how much they can develop a quarterback. So hopefully this is just the beginning of that. Now, if he is able to win the starting job next year, it could be his for many years, maybe 2, 3, 4 years. Beyond that, I guess, yeah, because he could redshirt. So we'll see what happens with it all. But if he wins that out, I think that he could definitely be a face of this Gophers program and a building block moving forward. And anticipation is his elite factor. Now, others that hopefully step up at the wide receiver, Minnesota needs someone who is the next man up, whether it's Kenrick Lanier, Nuke Hayes, new transfer Tyler Williams. The Gophers need someone to step up with Daniel Jackson out of eligibility after this year. So there will be one more building block, I think. Maybe there's more, but I think at least one more in that wide receiver room. Hopefully we find this season. And then I think in the end, the offensive line depth is what can hold Minnesota's offense together over the next few years. So honorable mentions for me, Nathan Roy, Brett Carroll, Phillip Daniels, Alum Nickel, lots of depth on that offensive line, intrigue on the offensive line. Now, flipping it to the defense, I think names like Maverick Baranowski, who is the future of this linebackers room. Now, Cody Lindenberg could play just this year. He could play the next 2 years. And if he does, then he's definitely a staple and a building block for the Gophers. But I'm not sure where he falls on when he will try to take his talents to the NFL. If he has a completely huge season this upcoming season and stays healthy, maybe he takes the jump, or maybe he comes back and plays another one. We'll see. But I think Maverick Baranowski showed that he had a lot of raw potential last year being thrown into the fire as a redshirt freshman. I think this year as a redshirt sophomore, he is going to ball out. I think he's going to be the leader of that room when Cody Lindenberg does end up taking his opportunity with the NFL. So that means redshirt sophomore, redshirt junior. I think at least that's 2 more years of Maverick. And if he balls out the way he does, maybe he has NFL upside, or maybe we get 3 more years of Maverick Baranowski being the forefront of this linebacker room. So he's a name you definitely want to watch. And I think he is going to fit very, very, very well in this new defensive coordinator system. So Maverick Baranowski is definitely a name to look out for. Now, Devin Eastern is my guy. I think he'll be here for 2 more years, this year and maybe 1 more year. I think he's going to absolutely dominate on that interior. He's going to draw a lot of interest from the NFL with his size. And if he can put that production together, working with Coach Winston DeLattiboudere, I think the NFL will find interest in Devin Eastern. So I think he's going to be a staple on this defensive line. And you're going to find a lot of my names coming up next are defensive linemen. because I think that that's where Minnesota is trying to build their strengths. You've got Devin Eastern, who I think is going to be right in the forefront of it all. Anthony Smith, who has been just seeping talent. NFL scouts are very interested in him when they come to visit, and he's just still finding his confidence. He's finding his upside, but his upside is massive. Along with him, Jackson Howard is another name I think is going to be a big producer. Now, this year might be his first year really getting his feet wet and getting in there, but I think next year and the year after that, Jackson Howard could be an absolute maniac for the Gophers on the edge. So I think a lot of their potential and their building blocks comes on that defensive line, and I can't wait to see what happens with it. Now, that being said, I have no clue who makes themselves into that mold in the secondary, but there will be a couple people that answer the bell. Now, honorable mentions in that area for me, Coy Parrish, who is a highly touted guy who the Minnesota Gophers were absolutely stoked that they landed in his recruiting class. Zaquan Bryan, I think he's going to be the cornerback once Justin Wally and Ethan Robinson are no longer with this team, but I think he's going to work his way into the opportunities this year, get on the field, and then he could be cornerback one heading into 2025. So he's a name to keep in mind. And then Kerry Brown is a name that really intrigues me as well. So those are my honorable mentions. Now, these are all names I imagine get involvement this season, but in some capacity. Maybe besides Drake Lindsay, because Max Brosmer, but I really anticipate them being potential key starters in 2025 and beyond in 26 as well. Now, speaking of Max Brosmer, we're going to talk about where do I see him ranking in the Big Ten rankings for 2024 by the end of the season. We're diving into that coming up next. First, let's talk about our friends over at eBay Motors, because they have the winning formula. They have the winning formula to winning championships, but also to help keep your vehicle alive, and that is passion, drive, and patience. Now, eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. It doesn't matter if you're into speed, power, or style, they've got you covered. And on top of that, they have over 122 million parts, which it makes it number one for your ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you are looking for. And because you get to have ease of mind, peace of mind with eBay Motors, because of their guaranteed fit, where your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every single time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, and the eBay guaranteed fit is for U.S. customers only. All right, Gophers fans, we're diving into where I believe Max Brosmer ranks to finish the season in the Big Ten. I'm ranking all of the Big Ten quarterbacks, and this is a way too early Big Ten quarterbacks rankings, but this is more of where I see them finishing by the end of the season production-wise. Now, before I get there, I want to talk about PFF. They posted their graphic lately of the highest graded returning quarterbacks in the Big Ten, and that list was Dylan Gabriel at 1, Drew Eller at 2, Tyler Van Dyke at 3, Max Brosmer at 4, Curtis Rourke at 5, Will Howard at 6, Ethan Garbers at 7, Will Rogers at 8, Tommy Schuster at 9, and then Hudson Card at 10. Now, clearly, Tommy Schuster is an outlier there, as he will likely not even be the starter for Michigan State moving forward, but it's interesting to see those grades, so definitely check it out over on X or Twitter or whatever you're calling it. But I want to dive into my way too early rankings. And before I get into those, I don't want to hear on the Max Brosmer front, oh, he played in the FCS. His production doesn't mean anything. That take is trash. We've seen a number of quarterbacks from the FCS to the NFL and play at the NFL speed. So FCS quarterbacks can play at the Power 5 speed at the Big Ten level. Now, on top of that, he trains with a quarterback coach he's training with NFL quarterbacks every offseason. CJ Stroud, Michael Penix Jr., Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson. He's working with these guys and he understands what it takes. So a number of these FCS guys have found success. Plus, not only was he good in the FCS, he was second in their Player of the Year award. So if you're coming to discredit this list solely because of where I rank him, you can kindly see yourself out. But this is how I believe the Big Ten quarterbacks will finish production-wise in our way too early rankings. Now, if new additions come through, if injuries happen, obviously, That will change. But notice how I said production wise, because there are teams that are going to throw the ball more than others, obviously. So I took that into consideration. Now, number one for me is Dylan Gabriel over at Oregon. I don't think he is going to miss a beat. I think he's going to basically carry forward exactly where Bo Nix left off. He still has Tez Johnson in that wide receiver room. He's been productive every year in every school that he has played for, and I would not be surprised if he finishes as a Heisman finalist. Now, number two for me is Miller Moss, because USC's defense might be trash. It might be non-existent. It might be a sieve, but Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks have hella production, and I do not expect that to change in 2024. Now, does that mean it'll turn into wins? Not necessarily, but it means the quarterback is going to have a lot of statistics, a lot of production, and that leaves Miller Moss high on my list for this one. Now, also, he's got Zach Branch and Deuce Robinson, big-time weapons. That helps. Drew Aller, he's number 3 for me. Now, a lot of people might be like, whoa, what the heck? Like, yeah, we've always heard this guy touted as a high prospect and all this, but he didn't look good last year. You're not wrong, but he has the arm strength. He has the talent. He graded out as an 85.6, I think, last year, which isn't bad. And I really like the offensive coordinator that they brought in from Kansas, and I believe he can help Aller take the next big step. So he comes in at 3 for me. Will Rogers comes in at 4. Now, if Jed Fish passes with Washington like he did at Arizona last year, then Will Rogers will have all of the opportunity. Will Rogers has been one of the most productive quarterbacks in the college space in multiple years in the past. And I do worry about their pass catchers and all the departures they had, especially the NFL draft. But I think Washington is going to air it out. They could find themselves behind maybe with all the departures they lost, but I think Will Rogers is definitely going to be a focus point for them. And thus he finishes high for me in this list. Now, number 5 in production for me, Aiden Childs. Aiden Childs has an offense he knows. He has a head coach that believes in him and is all in on him. He has a tight end weapon he's familiar with, and he has the ability to run and create with his feet on the ground, which is more production opportunities. So I think Michigan State is likely going to be playing from behind in year 1 with Coach Smith, and they could have some opportunities to pull off big wins, but I think Childs is going to be the center point of that offense. Thus, he finishes at number 5 in production for me in my best guess. Now, number 6 is Indiana's Curtis Rourke. Cignetti, the new coach at Indiana, likes to throw the ball. Now, Rourke is very experienced. He even has a 3,000-yard passing season to his name, which means I believe in the ability and the opportunity. If it's all there and it's aligned, he can be one of the most productive quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Now, does that turn into wins? We don't know quite yet, but Indiana will certainly be playing from behind probably in a lot of these matchups, which means more passing opportunities, which means Rourke could see high production and thus comes at number 6. Now, number 7 for me is Will Howard or Julian Sayin. I think maybe Will Howard starts the year. I think eventually one of those young quarterbacks is going to possibly take over, but I put them simply here because Ohio State looks like the best team in the country on paper. It's plain and simple. And you've got Carnell Tate, you've got Emeka Egbuka, you've got Jeremiah Smith, who looks like a freak as a true freshman. They're all going to be amazing. But I have them lower because you've got Chip Kelly, who loves to run the ball as your offensive coordinator. You have Judkins and Henderson, who are 2 of the best running backs in the entire country. And Ohio State is going to look to run the ball a lot more. So I put them at 7 here. I've got Hudson Card coming in at 8. Once again, a team that will likely be playing from behind. Now, he has the talent as a quarterback, and we've seen him get a lot of production. We've also seen him have some turnover issues. So we'll see what happens there. I'm not sure he has the pass catchers to be really elite. So if you wanted to move him further down on this list, I would not blame you, but the team's offense rides on his shoulders, and I think he's going to have a lot of production with a lot of opportunity playing but from behind. Excuse me. Now, number 9, I've got the Gophers' Max Brosmer. I couldn't put Max Brosmer higher because I can't fully believe in PJ Fleck and that he is going to pass the ball more until I actually see it happen. I thought last year was going to be the year, and it wasn't. So I need to see it happen before I can take any leaps of faith on that front. Now, I think Max Brosmer's efficiency will help Minnesota's offense, but I do believe it could be a lot more shorter throws, a lot more chunking the field and driving quickly in quick passing games. So I think he's going to crack 2,500 passing yards. But that being said, I think Minnesota is still run first. So I've got Brosmer at 9. I've got Tyler Van Dyke of Wisconsin at 10. I believe Wisconsin will also be a more run-first team with Malusi back, they also have a OU transfer running back who they're excited about. Now, Tyler Van Dyke can also use his legs, so that production could see him higher on this list. I could even see a case for flipping him and Hudson Card and having Tyler Van Dyke at more of that 8 range. I'm guessing him, Brosmer, and Card all finish in a very similar range in production, and we'll see what happens there, but he comes in at 10 for me. Number 11 is Nebraska's Dylan Raiola. I think 1 year from now, this dude could be a top 5 or a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten. I wouldn't even be shocked. He's uber talented. He puts in the work. It sounds like he's been grinding on the film. He's trying to understand making checks at the line and things like that. And that said, I think Nebraska is going to protect him in year 1. I think they're going to lightly warm him up into the conference play and protect him a bit. And I think Nebraska will lean into the running game and the defense as we hit the halfway point of the year. Maybe you see Raiola's numbers tick up, and all of a sudden you see that trending towards him being a top quarterback in the conference in the next year, but right now I'll have him just outside of the top 10 at 11. I've got Michigan's quarterbacks, Orji or Jaden Davis. I think one of them, maybe they switch halfway through the year. I don't know what happens at that quarterback, but I think I'm giving them a bit of the Michigan benefit of the doubt here. Orji could add some rushing production as well. And I'm really unsure what this offense looks like in 2024. So I've got him at 12. 13, I've got Cade McNamara of Iowa. Another moment of I'll believe it when I see it. I haven't seen an Iowa offense be productive, especially in the passing game. Now, he's better than Deacon Hill, but he didn't do a whole lot when healthy. A 28.9 QBR is not good at all. And he had 4 touchdowns to 3 interceptions in the brief play. So his TD to interception ratio wasn't great either. Never cracked above 200 yards in the games he was able to play. So I'm not a huge believer in their offense. 14, I've got Luke Altmaier of Illinois. Lost more weapons. He was kind of a do too much player for Illinois last year, and just not really sure I believe in the guy. So overall, I couldn't put him any higher than 14, but he does have production on the ground and he can play hero ball. So we'll see what happens there. I've got Ethan Kaliakmanis at 15. I could see Ethan higher on this list, but I couldn't do it knowing nothing about the Rutgers pass catchers, knowing nothing about who they brought in or who they have coming back in that front. Now, hopefully I'll have a better insight of that when we do our breakdowns later in July and August. So we'll see if I review on that one. But what I do know is Rutgers loves to run the ball, and I think they're going to continue to lean into that, giving Ethan Kaliakmanis not as much opportunity. Now, to wrap it up, I've got MJ Morris at 16, Ethan Garbers at 17, and Mike Wright of Northwestern at 18. So that's Maryland's, UCLA's, and Northwestern's, all as the bottom 3 quarterbacks. Now, we will be sure to get a way too early Big Ten rankings going sometime this month as well. So be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss that. Let me know your comments, where I got it right, where I got it wrong down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you're thinking. But to wrap today's show up, I want to talk about a Gopher alum who is cashing in. That's none other than Antoine Winfield Jr. and why that helps our program moving forward. We're diving into that coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Gametime, because Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier, and the prices on Gametime actually go down closer to the time for tip-off. So definitely check them out, because they have killer last-minute deals on all-in prices, views from your seat, and they're the lowest price guarantee. So Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets for the NBA, and it's not just the NBA. You can check out the NHL, you can check out the MLB, you can check out theater events, concerts, you name it. They've got you covered at Gametime. Priority last minute deals, save up to 60% off of buying last minutes for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And on top of that, they have the Gametime ticket coverage, which is your tickets are covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So definitely take a swing with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today and create an account and use promo code Locked On College. That's LOCKEDON College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Gophers fans, we're wrapping this one up talking about Antoine Winfield Jr. Now, my man, Antoine Winfield Jr. or Tweez, he just got paid. I mean, this guy is the highest paid defensive back in the entire National Football League. That's right. A Gopher is the highest paid defensive back in the entire National Football League, which is amazing to say. He's making $84.1 million over 4 years with $45 million guaranteed. He was an All-Pro in 2023, had multiple years where he was right on the verge, right on the cusp, but he finally broke through for an actual All-Pro voting in 2023. He was also a Pro Bowl player in 2021, and he garnered some Defensive Player of the Year votes as well in this past season. Now, this past season, speaking of it, he had 6 forced fumbles, 4 fumble recoveries, 122 tackles, 6 sacks, 3 interceptions, and 12 pass breakups. He's the only player in the data tracking era since 1999 to have 100 plus tackles and at least 3 interceptions, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, and sacks in a single season. Antoine Winfield Jr. more than earned his cash. He's the leader of that Buccaneers defense. And Tweez posted a year ago in May of 2023 on his socials, speaking this into existence. He said he wanted to be an All-Pro and the highest paid. Both of those came to fruition. Both of those came true. And it's still blasphemous to know that the All-Pro who did all of that and garnered Defensive Player of the Year votes did not make the Pro Bowl on the first run. So look, I'm happy for Antoine Winfield Jr. because he earned it and he has balled out, but also because this helps Minnesota as a program. This helps Minnesota Gophers because a Minnesota Gopher is the highest paid defensive back. This helps because it shows you can go play at Minnesota and still be one of the best in the NFL. It's also one hell of a recruiting pitch for future defensive backs, especially when both of the starting safeties since Tweez left also have been draft picks in the NFL. Now, if Justin Wally and Jack Henderson add their names and keep the DB trends rolling, you've also got Benjamin St-Juste, you've got Terrell Smith, all getting to the NFL and showing production, showing good play. I think that it just makes Minnesota more and more viable in that front, and you're seeing the professional development, which has been on the rise over these years. So it's consistently getting guys to the NFL, and the young names on this team could continue to build that trend as well. Now, in fact, Minnesota was recently credited by PFF as tied for third of programs with the most linebackers on current rosters. First was LSU with 8, second was Michigan with 6, and then Minnesota was tied with Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and Notre Dame with 5 linebackers on NFL rosters. Now, this isn't counting the linebackers who are seen as outside linebackers or edge rushers, but more so true linebacker positions. So Minnesota's 5 were Blake Cashman, Jack Gibbons, Damian Wilson, Devondre Campbell, and Carter Coughlin. So it's awesome to see all of this coming to fruition, especially as a Gopher fan. It's been great as of late. Now, last year was definitely a down year, and hopefully Coach Fleck and crew get it back on track this season. But the pro development is alive and well here with the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and Antoine Winfield cashed in, showing you can do it as a Minnesota Gopher. Now, on top of that, hopefully Jordan Howden can continue to secure a starting role, find his opportunity to be in a similar position. Tyler Nubin, I think he's going to be a better NFL player than he was in college, and that's saying something. So I think the future is bright for Gophers in the NFL, and hopefully that trend keeps on going. We'll see you tomorrow. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. I appreciate y'all for listening. Now, tomorrow, I think I'm going to tap into something interesting. We're going to talk about how the Gophers would fare in the Big 12 or the ACC. It's never going to happen, but it's a fun hypothetical. We'll also talk about some names from the 25-26 classes and which game is most important on the college football schedule for the Gophers in 24. I'll see you then. Roll the boat, Scotty Mago Gophers, as always, and don't forget to hit subscribe.